My slides are titled The Art of Crafting Memorable Conclusions, a Strategic Guide. Okay, so please make sure you can see the words clearly. If you can't, you might want to log on using a device with a larger screen. Okay, I know some of you are new, so you might be trying it out on your phones. I don't recommend that you use your phones, because in the event that, I get text for you that's really small, you will struggle to read it. Okay, right now the text is quite large, but later we'll be looking at a model composition, and that will be quite small. Okay, so please make sure that you have a screen that's large enough for you to be able to read text. Okay, that's reasonably small. Thank you all again. Right, it's 2:59. Let's give the others a few more minutes. All right. If you have any questions, again, you may type it in the chat, and I will be able to review, and I will be able to look at some of the messages that you're sharing. Okay. Yeah. Jaden, no worries. I know that you are Jaden. No worries. Thank you for informing me. Okay, later on, right, if any of you need to step away for tuition or other classes, or you have another appointment, please go ahead and just leave. Do not worry. I'll be able to check your attendance by looking at the log of this whole session. So I will register you as being present even though you've left, okay? Do not worry about that, right? So just you can dismiss yourself from the meeting if you need to go. You don't need to inform me or message me, right? I will just track the time that you are on this call. As long as you're on the call longer than 20 minutes, I will take it that you have attended today's session. All right? Thank you very much. Okay, great. We have already exceeded the number of our previous week's attendance, so that's wonderful. I'm glad that all of you could join us, at least most of us. So again, a gentle reminder that I'm recording the session, so please be on your best behavior. Make sure that your cameras are turned on and I can see you visibly through my camera, through my screen, so that I can make sure that you are paying attention to my session. Okay, so if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask, or you can message me in the message pane and I will reply to you. Wonderful. Okay, so about 90% of us are already here, so I'm just going to begin. It's 3:01, right? Thank you all for being prompt and on time. I wonder whether we can actually even hit full attendance, right? But it looks like it's possible we might actually hit full attendance today. That's great. We're already up to 39 people now. That's great. Okay, so thank you all again for your strong participation. Mr. Pang really appreciates it. But I remind all of you that if you have other commitments, don't worry. You can miss this session. It's recorded and it will be posted in the same place for your reference. And by the end of this year, we should have a collection of videos that will help you to do your revision. Okay, both for writing, speaking, reading, as well as comprehension. Okay, so this is part of Mr. Pang's effort to put everything very nicely together so that you have short little videos that you can revise with and review what has been taught. Okay, yes, no worries, Aiden, right? I note that you are Aiden, and I note that you're using someone else's computer. Okay, that's great. Right, let's begin, right? I'm going to talk today about conclusions. And as you all know, right, there are 5 parts to a composition, right? Very quickly, can someone raise your hands if you can recall what are the 5 parts to a narrative so that we can get started with today's, yep, okay. Let's have Anand, go ahead.
Introduction,
Mm-hmm.
the rising action,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the climax,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the falling action,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the conclusion.
Very good. And Anand, bonus points, can you tell Mr. Pang what you feel is the most important part of the story?
The climax.
The climax, okay, you are not wrong there, okay. But do you think that the climax is, do you think the introduction and the conclusion are also important?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Can someone tell me why you think a conclusion is important to a story? Let's hear some of your thoughts before I go into my presentation, okay. Maybe let's hear from Kayla, right? You raised your hand second after Anand. Would you like to tell us why you think so?
Because when it's at the beginning of the story, it's like you're introducing, and after at the end of the story, you're like closing the story or something like that.
Sorry, can you repeat yourself again? Why do you think that is important?
Because when you close the story, you are showing the marker that you are finished and you're still in the topic.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that you're very conscious of the fact that your story is being marked, is it? And therefore, you want to be clear to the marker that you have not left the topic. You are on topic and you have ended your story. Okay, those are good points, but I hope we can go beyond marking and we can go beyond the fact that our compositions are being used in the exam. But generally in writing, why do you think a conclusion is important? Kayla's not wrong, but maybe we can expand on it a bit. Okay, Arthur? Yep.
If you don't have a conclusion, the story will never end.
Okay, so it ends the story. It gives a nice close to it. It's closure, right? Closure is when something ends nicely and you all go, it's a nice ending, right? So a conclusion functions as a bookend, like the end of a book, right? The last page. So it indicates to you that the story has ended. Any other thoughts about why conclusions are important? I'm going to wait for a few seconds to see whether anybody else wants to add to it. Okay, can I request that everybody please turn on your cameras? Okay, for example, Yuxuan, can you please turn on your camera? Yes, Tinker, go ahead.
I think it could also mean that so that they know that how it ended, where it's like a no end story.
Okay, so similar to what Arthur said, it provides an ending to the story. Okay, fine. All right, I'll accept that. Oh, Helen, did you raise your hands? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, a conclusion will help understand what the story is, what the story's meaning is, and will also bring back what is supposed to be but for the title part.
Okay, so it brings back what the title should be, and it reminds the reader of what the entire story is about. Okay, you're not wrong there. Okay, you're not wrong there. Good. All right. So I'm going to go into a little bit about why. Okay. So when we talk about conclusions, right, it is important to understand that they matter because conclusions give you the last impression. Now, you all have heard that first impressions count, right? You all know what first impressions are? Right? First impression. Can anyone explain to me in your own words what you think a first impression is? Okay, right. Oscar? I'm sorry, Zihan, go ahead.
First impression is seeing someone for the first time and then you judge them.
Okay, there's some element of judgment involved, right? You form an impression of them. You form an idea about them, right? When you first see them. Isaac, did you have something similar or do you have something a bit different when you raised your hand?
I had something like that I want to say.
Okay, do you want to say in your own words so that you can add to the discussion? What's the first impression?
It's like what you think of other people.
Okay, good. What do you think of other people? All right, good. For the first time, right? You meet them for the first time, and then what do you think about them, right? First impressions only happen when you meet someone for the first time. Am I right? When you meet them for a second or a third time, does a first impression still hold? Not anymore, right? Because you already know them, okay? Good. So a first impression is important, and that's the introduction, right? Because the reader will encounter your story for the first time at the introduction. So that's why introductions are important. And of course, your conclusion is the last thing that your readers will read just before they leave your story, okay? So last impressions are also very important. Why? Why are last impressions important? First impressions help us to form an idea of the person, the first time we meet them. That's why, you must dress nicely, right? You must give a good first impression. But why are last impressions important, right? Why are conclusions important? Okay, let's hear from Kayla.
So they will still remember the story.
Very good. The word
And
is
find it
remember.
nice.
Okay, good. Stephanie, do you want to add to that?
I think that they will still remember what you did last time.
Okay, so remembrance, memory, that's very important, right? Because you all know all good stories are stories that stick in the mind. Am I right, everybody? Right? So I'm sure y'all can remember some stories that y'all love, right? Right? Even though you don't have the book in front of you, even though you don't have access to it anymore, can you still remember your favorite stories? Yes? You can, right? You can remember the characters. You can remember the storyline, right? Why? Because the story is stuck in your head. It has formed a strong last impression. Okay, so probably the ending of the story was very cool, or was very emotional, or was very powerful, and then it stuck with you, right? You remembered it all this time, and probably you wouldn't mind reading the storybook again, right? Am I right? Yeah. How many of you would read a story again because it has a wonderful ending, or it has a wonderful character, or it's something memorable, right? Yeah. As you can see, many of you feel that way. Oh, there are like more than 20 of you have raised your hands, okay? So very powerful, right? Maybe I can ask somebody, Aiden. Aiden, can you tell me, like, maybe give me an example of a story that you really love?
Like Geronimo Stilton and Sherlock Sam.
Okay, all right. So you've named two characters from two different series. Am I right? Geronimo Stilton. Do you all know who Geronimo Stilton is? Yeah, it's very famous, right? I'm sure most 11 to 12-year-old kids would know who Geronimo Stilton is. Am I right? Okay. And if you live in Singapore, you might have heard of Sherlock Sam. How many of you have heard of Sherlock Sam before? Right? Have you seen him in Popular Bookshop? Right? Or one of the local Kinokuniya bookshops, right? Or the Times bookshop. Yeah, he's a very popular character created by a local author whose name is A.J. Simpson, A.J. Low, right? A.J. Low, right? Okay, so very, very popular. Some of you have the book. You're waving it at me. I can see it. That's awesome. Yeah, be proud of the books that you have, okay? Be proud of the fact that you've read it, okay? That's great. Awesome, awesome, okay? And then if you all want to, you can bring it to school and exchange it with your friends as well, okay? Because you may have certain books, your friends may have other books, okay? Right now, I saw that. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. Impressions are important, first and last. That's why your introductions and your conclusions must be powerful so that your stories will be memorable. You can remember your stories and you will not forget it. Do you all understand? Okay, any questions? By the way, I remind you to please mute yourself after you've answered a question. Some of you have forgotten to mute. Then I can hear the background noises, okay, that's going on. Okay, so please make sure you remember to mute, okay? Right, so let's move on. Everybody, please stop with the responses, because if you keep responding, then it will distract the rest in the actual PowerPoint slide, okay? So I remind all of you, your reactions not to overdo it, otherwise it will be very distracting. And remember, this is being recorded, okay? So your names will appear next to the reactions that you have triggered, and then it will be in the video. So please try to be a bit more circumspect and be a bit more controlled and restrained in your reactions. I'm not saying you can't react. Reactions are nice, but don't keep on reacting, okay? Right, let's move on. So what are some of the common problems when we write a conclusion, right? We tend to repeat the theme, right? Mr. Pang actually guilty of that, right? I tell you all, right, must repeat the theme. Do you all remember I said that? Must repeat the keywords of the theme. Okay, but that is the lowest level, right? That's the most basic form, okay? Are you all still raising your hands, or have you all forgotten to put your hands down? Okay, if you have no question, please lower your hand, okay? Otherwise, Mr. Pang will have some trouble tracking to see whether somebody has raised their hands or not. Okay, so I'll lower it for you first, okay? So there are three main problems. One is that you repeat the words without expanding on it. Okay, Mr. Pang will show you later how to expand on a conclusion, okay? In order to Kayla, please stop messaging, right? Like I said, there's no need for you to message an unimportant message. Please refrain from sending messages, because the messages will pop up, right? And then they will distract me in my presentation. So please only message when absolutely necessary. Do not send frivolous and unimportant messages, because that will interrupt the flow of the presentation, okay? But if you have a question, you can type it in and I will answer it, all right? Do not use the message chat to respond and to just send random messages. Okay, right? Thank you very much. And if you have a response, please try to raise your hands and answer rather than sending it in a message. Okay, I would prefer if you raise your hands and then answer verbally, so I know that you're paying attention. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so first strategy. Okay, I'm calling this reinforcement, or reinforcing your main argument. Okay, so you can rephrase the main theme in a different way. Okay, so for example, if our theme is the bullying incident, right? In the last paragraph, right, we might want to say something to the effect that, bullying has destroyed many lives, but it failed to destroy mine. Got it, everybody? Can you all see how I'm responding to the theme? Bullying has destroyed many lives, but it failed to destroy mine. As a conclusion, right, it's a memorable line that tells people that I have triumphed over the bullies, right? Just like our character John triumphed over Big Bully Chan and his gang, right? So bullies, right, they can try, but they failed to overcome me, okay? So something like that could be a good way to echo the theme, but in your own words, in a fresh way, so that you don't just say, it was a horrible bullying incident, right? Just to use the word bullying incident, very boring, right? Yeah, so instead of saying, it was a horrible bullying incident, you might want to say something like, you know, the bullies have destroyed many lives, but they failed to destroy mine. Okay, very dramatic, right? Very clear distribution. If I give you a theme like, you know, persevering and not giving up, what kind of concluding statement, what kind of echo might you be able to craft from a story that is about persevering to the end and not giving up? Anybody? You want to give it a try? Okay, Kayla, our first volunteer. No wrong answer, just give it a try.
I would. I've succeeded where others have failed.
Okay, I finally succeeded where the others had failed. Very good. A clear comparison with other people, very much like mine. Okay, good. Zanelle, what about you?
Other people might have failed, but other people might have given up, but I did not give up.
Okay, other people might have given up, but I did not. Very good. Okay, so there's this contrast. So can you all see there's a principle? Very easy, right? You compare between other people and yourself, right? And you show the theme in what you've said. So instead of saying, you know, I understood the importance of not giving up, right? You say other people may have given up, but I did not. Very dramatic, right? Okay, very powerful, right? Sounds much more compelling and memorable because you want your people to remember your story. Okay, good. What about you, Arthur? Did you raise your hand?
I have not failed. I just found a lot of ways that won't work.
Okay, I had not failed. I had just found a million other ways that did not work, which is a quote, right? Right? Is that a quote from somebody famous, right? Like, I think it's Thomas Edison, was it? Okay, was it Thomas Edison, right? The man who tried a different way, 100 different ways to make the light bulb. And then in the end, he found a successful way. Okay, very good. Tinker, yeah, go ahead.
I think it could also be like other people are hopeless, but I didn't give up.
Okay, they had lost hope, but I didn't give up. So instead of using the word give up, you use the word hopeless or lost hope, right? Yeah, you could change the words around as well. That's a good idea. Okay, good. Are there any other hands raised that I missed? Okay, I don't think so, right? Looks like everybody had a chance. Okay, right. Yes. Let me just check. Okay, I think that's it. All right, let's move on now, okay? So strategy 1 is to rephrase the theme in a way that's more dramatic, okay? So we've all kind of got that down pat. I'm glad to hear your examples are all on track. Strategy 2, right? Make your ending emotional. Emotional, okay? Different kinds of emotions can be used here, okay? In the case of not giving up, of perseverance and resilience, right? What kind of emotions might you want to evoke in your readers? What kind of emotions do you want them to feel at the end of your story? Okay, what kind of emotions do you want to stir up in them? If you're talking about not giving up, Meng Xuan?
Inspired.
Okay, you want them to feel inspired. I love that word. Can you tell me what inspired means?
Like I'm not sure how to say.
Okay, never mind. Just but what do you want them to do?
Not give up, like the character in the story.
Okay, very good. So to be inspired, right, means that you want to follow someone's example. Got it, Meng Xuan? Okay. So like what you said, you want them to not give up like you did. Okay, like the character in your story didn't give up. You want them to follow in that character's example. Okay, so inspiring someone means you make them feel like they want to follow you, or you make them feel like they want to follow your example or the example of your character. Got it? And that's a very powerful feeling, right? Because at the end of the day, if a story can make you feel like you want to become like that person, right, then the story has succeeded in making you remember it. Okay, because you really want to become like that person, right? It's a powerful character, or it's a powerful story. Okay, so good job, everybody. So to make a story more emotional, right? One way is to make the reader inspired, like the reader wants to follow in the footsteps of your character. Another way is to make the readers think about something they have not thought of before. Okay, maybe they thought that it was impossible, but now you help them think of it as possible, right? I used to think, right, that running a marathon was impossible. But after this experience, I realized that I could do anything I set my mind to do, right? Okay, in the story about resilience, if I write about running a marathon, right, not giving up and I run, right, then my ending statement might be, I get the readers to think about doing something that they never thought they would do before. Okay, so you push your readers to think about something that is beyond them. Okay, and you connect your readers in this way. So the first strategy, right, had to do with something dramatic, something unusual, rephrasing your key words. The second strategy has to do with the emotions, right? Making your readers feel something that's connected to the story. In this case, you want them to be inspired, or you want them to think that they can do something they couldn't do before because they read your story. And that way, your story becomes very memorable. So far, so good, everybody? All clear? All good? Okay. Now, I am only going to introduce 3 or 4. I'll see how many I can introduce of these strategies today. I'll leave you to read the others, okay? Because I don't want to take too much time and I want to move on to the model. Okay, so the next strategy, okay, is to challenge assumptions, right? So you make people expand their horizon, okay? So this is related to the previous activity about emotions, right? So now it's your thoughts. Just now was your heart. Now it's your thoughts, your mind. So I want you to think outside, go beyond what you thought of before, okay? So you challenge people's assumptions, right? Okay, so for example, if your story is about persevering or not giving up, then you might want to put your character as someone who has a disability. Remember, overcoming a disability? Did y'all do Paralympic Games last year? Did y'all study Paralympic Games, right? Can you remember? It was about Olympic Games, but for disabled people, right? Okay, and then you studied in the story about how people in wheelchair could play basketball, right? How people could play tennis and they could even like race using prosthetic legs. Okay, so you could write a story about someone overcoming their disability to prove other people wrong, right? So the assumption, right, is that, oh, if you are disabled, if you have a disability, you cannot participate in sports. That could be the assumption you are challenging. Okay? Yes, Kayla, did you raise your hand? Yeah.
But what if it's like fake?
As in, can you make up a story, is it?
Yeah, make up a story and then like example, but this is real. If you have a disability, you can still go for a marathon.
Oh,
like
okay.
just pretend is like not real. Then what about that? If it's like fake, can you like do it like that?
Of course, yeah. Your story doesn't need to be like real, as in like, you have to go and verify that there's actually such a person and there's actually such an event. No, you can make it up, but it could be inspired by a story you heard somewhere else, right? But you could change it, right? You could vary it. Like, for example, have you heard of this man called Nick Nick V? His name ends with V. He has no arms or legs. Right? Have you heard of him? Right? He gives inspirational talks. He goes to schools and he goes to government agencies and then he inspires people because he was born without arms and legs, right? But he's still able to swim. He's still able to draw with his mouth. He's still able to participate in sports on his wheelchair. He's quite amazing. Let me see if I can find, hold on. Mr. Fang, show you. Okay. There you go. Okay, have you seen this guy before? Right? He was born without arms and legs. Can you see down here? He has no arms and legs, right? And then, of course, you can see him on the stage here, right? He's able to walk. He's able to to give talks, and he's able to like do really amazing things. Okay, so for example, you might have heard a story of such a person, and you can adapt that person's story into yours, right? You can pretend you are that person, and you can write the story from his perspective, right? How you overcame your challenge in order to participate in a sport that you really loved. Okay, that's fine. I hope I answered your question, Kayla, right? So yes, you can kind of adapt it, make it up, like change parts of it. Okay, you don't have to be completely true to the story. Yes, Tinker, do you raise your hand?
How to walk without legs.
Well, he's obviously figured out a way to do it, right? So if you are interested, go and read up his story, okay? I'll send a link, right? Y'all can go and read his biography. Like, people have written stories about him. You can read up articles, so you can find out more about like how a person like this managed to overcome all of his disabilities in order to live a fulfilling life, a rich and fulfilling life. He's married, he's played in sports, you know, he has children, he swims, right? Yeah, and all of that. You can read about it. No time for me now to tell you the story, but basically you should be inspired by reading his story to want to overcome any challenges in your life, right? Because you should think, hey, if a person who doesn't have arms and legs can do this, there's nothing I can't do, right? Because I have arms, I have legs, and I have a fully functioning body, right? So if he can do it, I should be able to do so much more, right? Because I've got so much more than him, right? So that's what I mean by inspiring, okay? But expanding your horizons, you might not have thought it was possible before, right? Like Zanel is asking, how can he swim, right? But actually, before today, you might have thought it's impossible. If you don't have arms and legs, you can't swim. But just because Mr. Pang told you this story, did your horizons expand? Do you now know something that you didn't know before? Yeah, so that's what you want to do as a storyteller, right? You want to tell somebody a story that expands their minds so that they now can think of something they never thought of before. For example, a man without arms and legs swimming. Okay, and I guarantee you it's true. This is not made up. Mr. Pang didn't invent this character. I'll send you a video of him after today. You can watch, right, his inspiring story about how he overcame his disabilities and how he overcame his challenges to live a very, very fulfilling life. I think his life is even more exciting than yours and mine, right? So that's quite interesting. So anyway, challenge assumptions. So I repeat again. First point was to change the words of the theme so that it becomes more inspiring, right? Remember, you know, others had failed, but I did not, right? Or, you know, many others had been, you know, bullied by Bully Chan, but I refused to be bullied by him, you know? So I can change that. Number two, I can bring in emotions, right? I can bring in inspiring feelings, right? That Meng Xuan told us, right? I look at this character, I really want to be like this character, you know. I feel so strongly about becoming like this character. Then I'm inspired. I will remember this story. So be very inspiring. Bring in a character, right, that will be very inspiring. Or make your character say something that is so cool that other people want to follow, right? You know, I have tried, you know, I've never failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that doesn't work, for example. Okay, you could use a quote to accomplish that very, you know, powerful, inspiring example. And then the third one we talked about was to expand your readers' horizons by giving them an example or by telling them something that helps them to think outside of what they thought was possible before, right? So your story should inspire people to think that they can do something they couldn't do before. That'll be very powerful, okay? Now, this one is not so much for narratives. This is more for when you're writing information text, okay? You want to tell people about global warming so that they will stop using too much plastic, right? You want to tell people about rising ocean sea levels so that they will not throw all their rubbish without sorting it out, right? And making sure that they will not contribute to climate change, right? So calls to action are more for non-fiction text. But have you all written non-fiction text before? Have you all written information text before? You remember in primary 4, you all learn about, primary 3 and 4, you learn about predators and prey. You learn about, you know, unusual plants, right? You learned about the world beyond us, right? All these are non-fiction information texts. And in all of these cases, right, they are trying to teach you something so that you will do something, right? So for example, in Predators and Prey, you learn about animals so that you will learn that we need to protect their habitat so that these animals don't die out, right? You learn about unusual plants so that you will learn that plants are very, very important in our lives, and if we don't take care of them, very soon they will also die out, right? Then we won't have plants like the Venus flytrap, right, and the pitcher plant left to admire anymore. Okay, so there's always a call to action, but not so relevant in this case for a narrative, right? But just I'll put it here for all of y'all to see. Okay, this is the last one, okay? Thought-provoking questions. Okay, do you know you can end your story with a question? Right? I stood up to the bullies and refused to be bullied. Will you do the same? Right? That might be a question that you might ask your audience, your readers, right? Because you're talking to your readers. Okay. Yes, Kayla, what is it?
I want to ask you something like 2 slides ago.
Oh, okay. What is it?
What if the thing is actually impossible?
Oh, you wouldn't want to do that because you don't want your readers to think that something is completely impossible. And of course it is, because then that will break your story, right? You want your story to inspire them to action, not to inspire them to know, or rather not to make them think that something is impossible. Okay, right? So please keep what you are saying something that is within the realm of possibility. That's my point. Okay. Okay, let's move on now. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. It's already 3:30 and I don't want to keep you all for too long, right? Okay, so I'll stop here. Strategy 5, the power of thought-provoking questions. So I will review again. So number 1, right? Remember the echo effect. Always use different words to express your theme more powerfully. Number 2, right? Come up with a character or a line at the end that leaves an emotional impact or that causes you to be inspired, okay, by what is happening in the story. Number 3, right? Expand the horizons of what is possible with your reader. Challenge them, show them through your character's actions that they can become better, or they become stronger, or they can become more wise, right? Through what your character is doing. Inspire them, okay? Strategy 4, right? Call to action is more for non-fiction text, right? And then strategy 5 is to insert a thought-provoking question, okay? Do you all want to try to insert a thought-provoking question very quickly? If I'm talking about persevering and not giving up, what kind of question might I put towards my readers at the end of the story? Okay. Besides Kayla and Sinker, I would like to hear from the others. Okay, Isaac, what about you?
Will you be courageous and do what I did?
Very good. That's lovely. Will you be courageous and do like I did? Okay. Will you too join me to be standing up against the bullies or to not give up, right? When you run the next marathon, will you also be courageous and become like me? Okay, good, good. That's a good one. Good. Arthur.
How will you handle this situation?
Yeah, if you were in my situation, how would you handle this, right? Maybe that might be a challenge to the readers, okay? But use this carefully, yeah? You don't want the readers to be annoyed with you, right? Okay, you don't want your teacher to be annoyed with you, right? Okay, so use that one carefully, okay? Don't come across as being rude or challenging the authority of the person who's reading, So this one use with care, right? Dylan?
Like you can ask them whether would they have did what you have did in the story.
Okay, would you have done the same thing I did? Okay, good. Reagan?
Will you be as curious as me?
Okay, you could use a different value, okay, if it's about curiosity. Aiden?
Have I won or have I just become like them?
Oh, okay. So if you're writing about a bullying story and then you fought back against the bully, right? Then the question might be, did I really win or did I just become another bully like them? Oh, that's very deep, huh? Yeah. So you could have a question that shows to the reader how you are confused about the outcome. Very good. That introduces a layer of complexity and it makes your story quite memorable. Helen?
We don't know who discovered water, but we're certain it wasn't a fish. Would you know?
Okay, would you know, right? So maybe you're asking your readers to think about an answer to something you don't know. Okay, you could be asking them something that you are puzzled about. Okay, so for example, that day I learned the limits of my endurance. Okay, that day I learned the limits of my endurance. Okay, have you learned the limit of yours? Okay, that day I learned the limit of my endurance, but have you learned the limit of yours? Okay, so that could be a question to throw back at the readers, right? Okay, Jaden, yep, last one. Jaden, I can't hear you. Okay, Jaden, I think there's something wrong with your microphone. I can't hear you. Try to fix it, okay? But never mind. Thank you for trying. All right. Okay, right, everybody. I'm just going to show you very quickly an example of a simple ending and a more complex ending, infusing some of these strategies. And then I want you all to maybe look at how effective this will be, okay? Are you all ready? You all need to do some reading now, okay? Okay, let me just move the slides on. We are not going to cover questions. I'm not going to cover this. Okay, let's take a look at this. Can y'all see this? Can y'all read the text? Is it too small for you? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sure whether I can zoom in. Okay, maybe like this. Is this better? Okay, yep. Yes, Arthur?
We can zoom in from this.
Okay, you can zoom in yourself, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, right, you can try that. Okay, but Mr. Bang has zoomed in a little bit more. Okay, so try to read this. Okay, so this is the first part of the story. Yeah, this is the introduction, the rising action, the climax, and then the falling action. Then the conclusion is on the next slide. Okay, so this is not yet the conclusion. I just want you all to understand the story because it's a bit difficult for me to show you a conclusion without the story. So I wrote a story, okay, and I want you all to use this story to contextualize how we construct a good conclusion. Okay. And by the way, if you look at the introduction, it also includes many of the strategies that we covered under how to write a compelling introduction. Okay, but never mind, don't focus on that. Just read the story quickly. Okay, I want to end in the next 5 minutes. Okay, it's already 3:35. I aim to end by 3:40 latest. All right. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, right. Are you all ready? Can I move on to the next slide? Okay, I'll give you a minute or two more. Okay, so it's basically a story. I mean, the theme is persevering, right? Not giving up, okay? Kaden, like I said, you can excuse yourself. Please don't message, right? You can excuse yourself. Please don't message. There's no need to ask for permission, all right? Okay, all good. Can I move on? All right, give me a thumbs up if you're all good. Okay, thank you very much. I see thumbs up from Wei Yuk, Rainer, Ruel, Zanel. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on. Okay, so next one. Now, on the left is the original conclusion, and on the right is the one that I wrote. Okay, is the one that I rewrote lah. Okay, so the on the left, obviously very short lah, right? Because that's a very basic conclusion That's kind of something a primary 4 student would write, right? Does this feel like a primary 4 conclusion on the left? Feels a bit like a primary 3, primary 4 conclusion, right? Yeah. So on the right is something that I hope y'all will aim towards. Okay. Notice some of the strategies. Okay. Can you see the challenging question? Can you see the inspiring quote? Can you see the rewritten theme? Okay. So these are the 3 main strategies that I used. Okay. And I'm sure y'all can see that it's much more effective, right? Do y'all agree? Okay, it's like way more interesting and it's way more powerful, right? Okay. So there are actually not one, but there are 2 different questions. And then in the last paragraph, there's another question. Okay, so questions can be very powerful because they provoke thought and they can inspire action. I say again, questions are very important, very powerful because they provoke thought and they can inspire action. Okay, so they can either provoke you to think or they can kind of inspire you to do something about it because of something that they're asking. Okay, right? So as you can see, you can make a big difference in the story simply by changing the conclusion. If all else remains the same, the conclusion can make a big difference, right? In the way that your reader walks away thinking about your story. Wow, in this case, right, I'm sure you can see how powerful it is. Okay, right. Yes, Kayla?